Hey there! I know it's been a while. Welcome to another episode of ColorPro Talks Mini, where we connect with inspiring creators to dive into their art, tools, and the stories behind their craft. We here at ViewSonic are absolutely abuzz right now in anticipation for this year's ColorPro Awards, and later in the show, we'll be touching on key aspects of this year's theme, Flow, so please stay with us. Today I'm absolutely thrilled to invite Ashraful Arefin, who's not only going to be the guest of today's ColorPro Talks Mini, but also serve as one of our judges for the photography category of this year's awards. Ashraful, welcome to ColorPro Talks Mini.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, could you maybe introduce yourself a little bit for our audience that may not be familiar?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Ashraful Arefin, and I'm a fine art and street photographer based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And I've been photographing, it's been more than 12 years. And I've started my journey as a hobbyist photographer and started with still life and eventually fell in love with street photography. And now I'm pursuing my career as a full-time photographer and shooting for brands and doing clubs. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, I think that's one of the most diverse kind of backgrounds that we've ever had a guest kind of go through with us. So you started with the still life, and then you moved on to kind of various things, and you're doing commercial and street right now.
Yes. So what happened is I was actually a student of fine art, and still life was I wanted to be a realist painter, and I was studying flowers and still life objects and stuff. But what happened is I got a bit bored with the usual, work, and one day I decided to kind of try something else, and I picked up a 50 millimeter lens, and that just clicked, and I fell in love with photography. And from there, I started doing and started practicing. And I started doing a 365 photography project. And back then, it was only with still life. So what happened, I did still life photography for 2 years. And I was getting some work and all of that. But suddenly, I felt a bit bored. And I felt like I was too much in control. With still life, you get to choose the subject, the lighting,
Yep.
Everything is under your control. So I thought that, okay, let's, challenge myself a bit. And I thought that maybe I can do a bit of street photography, but I was so afraid to go outside, especially in a crowded place like in Dhaka. So I thought that maybe if I just go to another country where nobody knows me, and I can just,
Yeah.
be confident and do stuff. So I took a solo trip to Nepal, and I started taking photos of almost everything, like from street to people to portrait to architecture. And when I got back home, I realized that it's those street photography that really making me, fell in love with photography. So then later I took another solo trip to Varanasi in India, and that literally changed everything for me. I absolutely fell in love with storytelling and everyday life, the moments and how people go about their lives on the street. So that really literally changed everything for me, and I decided, okay, this is the one thing I would love to do for the rest of my life. So from that, rest of the things happened.
Right. So, it definitely makes sense, like where the kind of the painterly aesthetic comes from. If you kind of have that kind of more real background than most painterly photographers that we see nowadays. And you kind of mentioned documenting the kind of hustle and bustle of real people going about their lives. And especially recently with a lot of video essays, I think this is a pretty touchy subject in street photography, but there's the literalism, whatever's on the street is street photography. There's the documentary street photography, and then there's the fine art style. What school of street photography would you say you kind of lean towards?
Well, I personally feel like I don't like to kind of limit myself to just one particular, class or genre. For me, street photography, and not just street photography, for me, photography itself is more about storytelling, and it doesn't matter if I'm doing it on the streets or I'm shooting with still life, or I'm doing something else. For me, my photos has to be a little story that can engage the viewers. So I think that especially like for me, street photography is not just about finding a nice, interesting street or finding a nice subject. It's more about the end result. Like when I look at the photo for myself, like as an artist, I want to feel something. Like it should make me feel something about the subject, the overall environment, or the vibe, or the mood. So for me, street photography is more about capturing those little stories that happening every day on the streets, in the corners. Like it could be something very simple, like someone just having a little bit of like tea after a day's work. Because I personally feel like no matter which country it is or which street it is, end of the day, as human beings, we all have different like lifestyles, but the core is the same, like we all go about our daily life like almost the same way. We start, the same kind of way. So I feel like when I capture a story from the street and represent it to the world, hopefully someone else from the another corner of the world will see that picture and they'll feel like, okay, like, I can connect with the subject. I can connect, even though it's like from totally another country or place, I can still connect to it. So that's what I feel like street photography is about, like creating a connection between people and our, on everyday moments, little moments. So that's what street photography for me is.
Right. So would it be fair to summarize that to say, so it's less about kind of like, oh, what street photography should be, whether it's this interpretation or that. It's more about telling the stories of the people on the street and connecting people around the world.
Yeah, and especially when I started at the back then, like especially in my country, like street photography has a very distinctive style, and like they follow a sort of grammar that it has to be a wide angle shot. It has to have like the details of the streets, all those things. So when I started, some of the people, they told me that it's not, my photos are not exactly street photography, like because I tend to focus more on this subject. Like most of the time my photos are based in just one particular subject, and the background is just washed away and blurred away. So I personally feel like for me, street photography is not just about only the street or what's happening on the street. It's more about the subjects, the people, and how they go about their day-to-day life. And for me, my subjects are my heroes. So that's why I personally like to focus more on the particular subject. And because, as I said, that for me, it's more about their story, and rather than just an entire story of what's happening on the street. So, yeah.
Okay. I think that's a really great lead into one of our, actually several of our audience members did ask like about whether you engage with your actual subjects or not. So I thought maybe I'd kind of wrap that up into a larger question about, when you're doing street photography, do you have any unspoken or maybe spoken rules that you follow personally?
Yeah, definitely. One rule I have followed from the beginning is that my personal opinion is respect is the key. Like you really have to have respect for not just for the subject, like of course for the humankind also. Like I personally would never portray something that's like demeaning to the subject, like portraying poverty or capturing some in the vulnerable state. I see, unfortunately, I do see some examples of like recent times happening that people do, kind of make some work out of someone else's misery. So I personally think that's how a street photographer should be doing. And I personally, that's one of the rule that I personally don't follow that, and I don't really like to do that. And another thing is, of course, like even if it's like, it could be something like a very beautiful photo opportunity, but if the subject feels uncomfortable, I would personally stop myself from taking that photo, because some photos you shouldn't be taking. You just let the subject decide and feel comfortable. So that's my number one rule.
Yeah, I think that's actually very close to my personal philosophy as well. I think respect is definitely number one. And personally, I'm really not a big fan of the whole poverty and like the, oh, look at this, like, oh, that's like the most the cringe inducing kind. I think I've had some situations where the person in that situation actually comes up to me and asks for monetary compensation, which I'm happy to oblige, but generally, yeah, I also tend to stay away from those kinds of situations because it does feel very exploitative.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really great to hear that, like coming from like a big street photographer such as yourself, that kind of hopefully other people will follow your example and respect people in their space.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's for documentation or you're raising an awareness, I don't necessarily see the need to capture someone in their vulnerable state. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I think, oh yeah, that's also a very, I think, important distinction as well. Um, and yeah, this is going to be what everyone's asking at the end of the day. But do you want to talk a bit about your gear, like your cameras, favorite focal lengths?
Yeah, sure. I'm still using my DSLR Nikon D850. I just love like the quality and the way it captures the images. And my personal favorite lenses are like one lens that almost never leaves my camera body is the Nikon 85 millimeter f1.8. And my second favorite lens would be the Nikon 105 millimeter f1.4. And nowadays, I have started using the Nikon 35 millimeter f1.8 a lot. I just love the wide angle and like the kind of depth it creates. So for now, these three are, I would say, that my regular lenses that I use. And the reason for using the 85 millimeter and 105 millimeter is that I really love the depth it creates, and it kind of creates a beautiful separation between the subject and the background. Especially, I'm shooting a lot in the crowded places like here in Dhaka, in Nepal. So it creates that beautiful separation with the background, even while creating those nice details. And another thing is, of course, like it gives me enough space to not invade someone's personal space and yet get some genuine reactions and expressions. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to also meet another one, sorry, another street photographer that's also more tele biased than your typical, your wide angles. Recently, I've been forcing myself to use the 28 millimeter just because I feel like I need to learn this, but it's
Yeah.
something about composing with a tele lens for me, for my brain, it just makes more sense with that subject separation you mentioned as well.
Yeah, totally relate to it. And I personally feel, I would say, more confident
Yeah.
with the yes. But yeah, like I recently like using the 35 millimeter and already loving the results. And I think it gives you a completely new perspective and fresher look. And I like to see that how I can still manage to get my kind of photos, even though using a wide angle lens. So yeah, it's fun to use.
You mentioned you're still using a DSLR, and obviously the image quality of the D850 is fantastic. Do you ever feel that the shutter sound is a problem when you're doing street photography, or you feel like, oh, there's enough separation, so it's okay?
One good thing about my D850 that it has a silent shutter system, so I can
Oh, right.
just stop the shutter sound anytime. And other than that, I want one thing that personally right now I'm feeling that it's lacking is the focus system. Of course, like it's not as advanced as the newer ones. Like I recently used the Nikon Z8, and the focus system is like it's totally another game. So hopefully I will switch to it. But yeah, for now, I think that my DSLR is still pretty powerful for my work. Because one thing about me is that I don't really do a lot of continuous shooting. So most of the time it's like I decide first that what to shoot and wait for the subject. And it's also like finding those decisive moments. So I think that like throughout the years, I have kind of trained myself to work with that. So it's still not the focus system, still not that big of an issue. But yeah, hopefully in next few years, I might get a new like a advanced camera. So yeah, but for now, I'm quite happy with it.
Okay. I mean, that's good to hear. we definitely need to slow down with the the mirrorless hype. But also,
Yeah.
I do feel like DSLRs are kind of coming back in a in a way where we used to look at film cameras like they're like, oh, look at this thing we used to use. But yeah, to your point, I think as long as rolling shutter isn't an issue, silent mode on DSLRs should actually be quite usable in that respect. Now let's talk about some of your post-production processes, and that's obviously software and your monitor. Are you editing most of your photos on Lightroom?
Yes, nowadays I'm using Lightroom for most of my photos because, with the recent technology and the AI development, it's been so easy and life-saving actually. But yeah, I also, apart from Lightroom, I also use Photoshop time to time because I think with Photoshop, you get a little bit more control with the brushing and masking. So unless I'm not doing like super heavy editing work, I usually go about for Lightroom. And of course, like for the monitor, recently I've been using the ViewSonic ColorPro VP2788-5K. And honestly, it's been a game changer for me. It's fully optimized for Mac, and it's honestly, my editing workflow has been so much better. And the 5K resolution complements the Mac's high-res interface beautifully, and it gives me those crisp, sharp images every time. And one thing I, of course, love about this monitor is that the 218 PPI matches Retina displays so perfectly, so that when I'm editing, I know that what the end result is going to be. And since I do a lot of print works, so for me, it's very important that whatever I'm editing, it should be, the outcome in the print should look exactly as it is in the screen. So yeah, it looks really great for that.
Okay, and I'm guessing then, because this was another very commonly asked question from the audience as well, the color grading part of your production process is mostly done in Lightroom then?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it makes sense how obviously the monitor helps with that. And yeah, as a fellow Mac user, I am quite jealous. I'm using an older model myself, but that 5K res and the way it stretches on the UI.
And like as I mentioned, that I do print my works, and especially like in bigger canvas prints. And it's a bit tricky with canvas prints because sometimes it happens that even though you're using a Retina display on Mac, but the prints might come out a bit darker. So I have to have that sort of accuracy. And especially with this VP 2788 5K, the 99% DCI-P3 color coverage is very, very good. And for me, just to, because since Mac displays are usually calibrated the same way, so it ensures that color consistency for me. And that was a huge relief. Like I've recently actually did a lot of printing, which was edited using this monitor, and it was absolutely amazing. The whatever I have seen in the screen, it just came out exactly like this. So I'm just like super happy with this.
Yeah, and for those of you watching at home, if one monitor is not enough, just know that you can actually use the Thunderbolt technology to daisy chain two of them, while only having one cable for your computer. So it's super convenient.
Yeah, that was a lifesaver. Or like imagine all those dongles you have been using beforehand, like
Yeah.
it's everywhere. It's like, and now it's just one Thunderbolt for connection. Life has been so much easy.
Well, we're definitely happy you love it. And yeah, it's been wonderful to have you be one of our kind of judges and be a great advocate for our products as well.
No, it's my pleasure actually. Like, and not just of course, all these big things, but I actually love some of the things that, for example, the color temperature and the color temperature light that lets me switch between the D65 and D50, which is really useful, when you are preparing prints. And of course that ergonomic stand, like it's lifesaver. Like I can just adjust it according to my needs, and like especially when you're doing like a long editing session, it's really, really helpful. So overall, like I couldn't ask for a better thing.
Love to hear it. Now it's the time you've all been waiting for. Everyone's favorite point of the ColorPro Talks Mini. Our guest Ashraful will take us through his editing, color grading, tasteful use of special effects, as well as how he utilizes or makes the most of some of Lightroom's newest technology in his very own tutorial made just for you. Ashraful, take it away.
All right, let's jump right into Lightroom Classic. So I'm about to edit this image today with you. This is one of my favorite images from Delhi, India. And I just love the quite beautiful story it tells about everyday life. So before starting, I would like to mention why I shot this a bit underexposed. Usually I shoot my images slightly underexposed. The reason is that I always want to capture the details in the highlights and don't want them to be blown out. For example, if we zoom in here, you can see that I was able to capture some of the details in the highlights, the textures, and I even got the details on the dust particles. And since I shoot raw, I know that I can always bring back the shadow details in Lightroom or in Adobe Camera Raw. Okay? So we will start with some basic adjustments. At first, I'm going to increase the exposure a bit, adding some light. And I'm going to decrease the highlights to bring back some of the details in the highlights area. That looks okay. And I'm going to bring back some of the details in the shadows. So increasing the shadow area. That looks good. And I'm going to increase the overall temperature to add a bit more warm glow to it. So increasing the temp. That looks about okay. And I'm also going to add a bit of green to the tint. And the reason behind this is to make it look a bit more warm and yellow. And I'm keeping texture, clarity, dehaze, and everything else just the way it was for now. So next I'm going to use the tone curve and I'm going to add a bit more warmth to my image. So for that, I'm going to first select the point curve and I'm placing 3 dots, first in the highlights, in the midtones, and in the shadows. And I'm going to increase the highlights just a little bit. And I'm going to increase the midtones. I'm keeping the shadows as it is. And next, I'm going to the red channel. And I'm increasing the highlights. And I don't want it to affect my shadows. So I'm just going to decrease it from here. That looks good. And I'm going to add a bit of yellow to the highlights. And to do that, we are going to select the blue channel. Since blue is the opposite of yellow, so we need to decrease blue from the highlights. So I'm selecting blue channel in the highlight area and slightly decreasing it. And I'm keeping the shadows as it was before. Okay, so far it looks good. So next I'm going to enhance and remove some of the distracting colors from the background. For example, this part over here, some of the tin cans, I think that the colors, they are a bit more vibrant and it's taking away my eyes from the subject. So I'm simply going to drag down to color mixer and I'm selecting point color. And by using this dropper tool, I'm going to move over and select this color. So it will now give me all the colors I have in that particular area. And I'm going to shift the hue a bit. So let's see how it looks. I'll probably zoom in a bit. And I'm going to also decrease the saturation. That looks good. And I'll probably shift the luminosity. That looks quite good. And I'm going to do the same thing over with the other parts. Selecting the dropper tool, selecting the color, and shifting the hue a bit, decreasing saturation, and shifting the luminosity. That looks a bit too much, maybe like this. And one more time for this purple part. Saturation, bit of luminosity shift, and maybe a bit of shift in the hue. Okay. So yeah, that looks good for now. And this is one way I usually go about enhancing the colors. Okay. And next, I'm going to remove some of the distracting elements, for example, some of the debris or unwanted objects. To do that, I'm going to select the Remove tool. And here in the Remove tool, make sure to click on Generative AI and also Object Aware. This is one of the latest features in Lightroom, which is super useful, and it detects the objects very beautifully and just removes it so perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and I will adjust my brush size according to the object I'm going to remove. So that looks good. And the opacity is 100%. So I'm just going to go over and brush over this part. And let's wait and see what Lightroom does. Okay, so Lightroom has selected this part. Now we're going to click on Subtract and Apply. This might take a bit time, and let's see what Lightroom does. All right, and it's gone. The AI has done a pretty good job. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to some of the other parts. So selecting the Remove tool, making sure that Generative AI and Object Aware is clicked on. And I'm just going to go over here and selecting this part. Let it analyze and subtract, apply. Let's wait. And it's all cleaned up. Looks pretty good. Okay. So now I'm going to do some selective adjustments to my subject. As I can see that one of my subject, which is the man in the front, his face is a bit less exposed. So I'm going to go ahead and add a lighting adjustment to his face just to bring a bit more details. So for that, I'm going to go over masking tool. And I'm going to go and add a new mask. And now I can select the subject. And what will happen is Lightroom will select both of my subject for me. But I don't want to make changes to both of them. It's just the face of the man. I'm going to add some lighting effect. So I'm not going to do it right now. So this time I'm going to select the masking tool and I'm going to select the brush tool. And I'm going to zoom over here to his face. And I'm going to brush over the areas I want to make the changes. Looks good. And here, I'm going to increase the exposure a bit. Let's see how it looks. That's too much. Maybe just like this. That looks good. And I'll increase the contrast. And maybe a bit of shadows. Okay. So that looks good. So yeah, now it's not a very drastic change, but just to add a bit more details to my subject to make him stand out a bit more. So next I'm going to add a bit more warmth to the image. So for that, I'm going to go over color grading and I'm selecting the midtones first and I'm dragging it towards a bit more warm tones. Looks quite good. And for the shadows, I'm adding a bit more cooler tones to create a nice contrast. So maybe like this. That looks good. So next I'm going to go ahead and create a vignette around my subject. And for that, I'm going to the masking tool. And this time I'm going to go over and click on Create New Mask. And I'm selecting Radial Gradient. And I'm just going to drag it over in the middle. Like this. It's a bit too much, so just going to drag the gradient to the center. Like this. Okay, that was good. So now you can see that it's actually affecting my main subject, but we need to make sure that it affects only the edges. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select it and going to click on these three dots and I'm selecting invert. So now it's only going to affect the edge of my image. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to decrease the exposure a bit, just a little bit. And probably I'll increase the shadows just a bit because I don't want it to look too dark. Just a bit of shadows to really make my subject stand out. And I'll probably increase the temperature a bit to make sure that it really goes well with the overall warmth. Okay, looks pretty good to me. And now I'm going to create a lighting effect in the background. I'm just going to add a bit of haze and golden sunlight effect just to increase the mood a bit. So again, I'm going to select masking tool and create new mask. This time I'm selecting the linear gradient and I'm just going to go over and I'm following the direction of the sunlight. And I'm going to go over here and simply dragging the cursor just like this. And again, you can see that it's affecting my actual subject. So we need to make sure that it only affects the background. So for that, I'm going to go over these three dots and I'm going to select intersect mask with And from the menu, I'm selecting the subject. And you can see that it has only selected the subject, but we need to invert it so that it affects only the background. So for that, I'm going to select the subject, clicking on these 3 dots, and I'm clicking on invert. So you can see that now only the background is selected. So what I'll do now, I'll go over and increase the exposure, and I'll increase the temperature to make it more warm. Let's see how it looks. That looks good. And maybe add a bit of purple to the tint area to make it a bit more warm orange kind of look. And if I think that I have overdone something, I can always go back and make changes. So like maybe around here looks good. So yeah, let's have a before and after look of our image. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm personally happy with the result for now. This was our before in the left, and this is the after in the right. So at this point, I will probably take a little break and get back to this image later to see whatever mistakes I made and if I need to make any changes with a fresh eye. And as you can see that I made those adjustments in small steps, it just gives me more options and I can always go back and rectify any mistakes I have made. And it keeps me everything in a nice flow. So yeah, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this little tutorial and it can really inspire you to find your own workflow. And all I can say is just have fun and before editing, just try to have a little vision in your head about the kind of result you really want. That will really help you understand what kind of tools you really need in Lightroom, and it will make your process much easier. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Instagram or through my website or through email. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So yeah, I'll see you soon.
Wow, that's a lot to take in, but I think everyone's going to be super appreciative today, especially now that it relates to the upcoming ColorPro Awards. So I hope you took notes, and I hope you'll watch it again just for the sake of it. But thank you, Ashraful, for sharing so much great info with us.
No, it's my pleasure. It's always a bit, pleasure to share your workflow and whatever you have learned throughout the years. So I am personally super happy to share. And I hope that the people who are watching and who have watched the tutorial will learn something from it. And mostly it will, inspire them to try their own workflow and create their own, work and just enjoy the editing part. So yeah, I'm just personally super happy and hope everybody learns something from it. That would make it more successful. So yeah.
I think no doubt they're going to be super thankful. And yeah, there's a lot of value in there. So once again, everyone, please pay attention, take notes, and get your submissions in for the awards. To wrap up, I think we'll cover some of the remaining questions from the audience that we thought really stood out. And so there's a really good one here. How long do you typically wait in one spot to capture the shot you're envisioning?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's no time limit to that. Like oftentimes it happens that sometimes I find like a nice, interesting street or lighting, and I feel like, okay, like someone in that light should look really well and it should make a beautiful photo. So I'd probably wait for the perfect subject. But for me, it's not just finding just anyone. It has to match so many things. For example, like I look for body language, I look for their facial structure. For example, like let's say it's a very harsh sunlight. So I would probably want someone with a very strong bone structure who's passing through that, so that the light can create this beautiful shape on his or her face. Or I would look for some sort of body language, because human body language actually speaks a lot. Someone might give you like a tired look or a happy look just from their body language. So I would probably wait for that perfect subject. So oftentimes it takes a long time, because it really takes time to find a proper subject. So I would say, like, usually, like, I don't know, it happened that I was standing in the same spot for like more than 1 hour just for one photo. So it totally depends on how good is that photo opportunity is, and if it's like, if I feel like, okay, like I'm going to get a super beautiful, amazing photo, I would probably stay there unless I get my subject.
Okay.
And the bad thing about is that, of course, like for one photo you lose so many other opportunities. But end of the day, like I feel like if I am happy with the photo that I got, that's all it matters. So yeah.
Do you ever set like a minimum time you stay in one spot?
Usually it's around 20 to 30 minutes.
Whoa.
Like it takes time, and especially like the places I photograph, like it's just so much crowded, so many people just going in and out. So it takes time to find that particular good subject. But yeah, like I give myself time, and I just stay there and relax and just observe, because sometimes like observing people and observing the street makes it most rather than just pointing and shoot. So yeah, I would personally feel myself more as an observer, and just stay there and enjoy the street, the mood, the vibe. And if I find a good subject, then yeah, I just take it.
Makes sense. And I'll kind of couple both of these questions into one because they are kind of related. But how much time do you typically spend on editing one photo, and how heavily do you normally go with it? Are we just kind of editing, or are we adding in effects and things like that?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the photos. Like it happened with me that one photo took about like 10 minutes. And there's this one photo that took me for like 2 days, because I wasn't being able to getting what I exactly want from that photo. Sometimes it can take like a very short time, and sometimes it takes a long time. It totally depends on the lighting, the texture, and of course about my vision. That it happens that I have a certain vision for a particular photo, and I keep trying until I get whatever I envisioned. So yeah, there's no fixed time for that, but it can take between like 10 minutes to even 1 day or 2 days.
Right. So
Yeah.
basically, as long as it takes for that work to kind of really shine.
Yeah. I will keep going back to that image until I get the desired look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very honorable. I have so many photos in limbo because I can't limit myself, but I really respect that you can really take it as long as it needs.
One quote actually stuck with me. I was watching this animation film, like the Toy Story, and there's one guy. He told that you can't rush art. So that really stuck with me. So whenever I'm editing, I always tell myself that never rush, no need to rush it. Just enjoy the process and just work until you get the result you want.
Yeah, and I think like your kind of amazing repertoire of work and all the followers you have really is a great testament to that. I know a lot of young street photographers are always they have this sense of FOMO and they're gonna like go to the next scene, go to the next scene. But I think those are some very sage words for our younger audience. And maybe we'll have time for one more. This one's very philosophical, but it says, I find it harder to see improvement past a certain point. Oh, I think we can all relate. How do you push through that?
Well, I think that I know that especially nowadays with all the competitions and all of those things, like in social media, everyone is putting their best work forward. So I totally relate to that. And even when I started, I also felt like, something wasn't really like working, or I wasn't being good at my work. But then I kind of decided, like, end of the day, like, if I keep thinking about these things too much, I won't be growing. I won't be, learning new things. Instead, I started focusing on my work, and my goal is to get better at myself and at my work than yesterday. And like, just small little adjustments and small improvements can take you a long way. So one thing I personally do, I don't really, of course, I look for other people's work, I admire them, but I don't take it as like, I have to be as good as them, or I have to be better than them. It's more about I have to be better than myself and just enjoy my work. Like, few years ago, like, as an introverted person, I didn't believe that I could go out on the street and take just one photo. And now when I look at my work, I have a nice big portfolio. So that's, for me, is like a big achievement. Like, so I look at those small little achievements and how far I have come. And honestly, when you look at your work that way, I think that that's way more inspiring, and it's very fulfilling. And I always say that always look back and see that how far you have come, instead of how much further you have to go. So that kind of gives you that peace of mind. So that's my mantra, and I just go about that. And I personally would suggest everyone to follow that, because like, art shouldn't be a competition, or you shouldn't feel like you have to improve every single time, or just like focus on your work and just think that how can I do better, but in a healthy way. So that's all it matters. So that's my
Wow.
kind of my yeah.
No, I think that's very inspiring. So focus on how far you've come, not how much you have left.
Yes.
I think those are very, very inspiring words for us to wrap up today's session. Unfortunately, that's about all we have time for today. But thank you, Ashraful, for your time, sharing your photography story. I think viewers of this episode, especially those looking to enter the awards this year, will have been
Yeah.
extra focused and super appreciative of everything you've shared with us.
Yeah, sure. It's all my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me here. And whoever participating, I just have like one thing to say: just have fun. Don't think about it too much. Don't pressure it too much. Just put your best work forward that you personally feel connected to and you feel proud of. Just put your work there, and yeah, rest will come out. And I hope to see all of your work soon, and can't wait to see them. And I'm sure everyone is going to bring such amazing works. So I'm super excited to see them. So yeah, and
I,
all the best to everyone.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Ashraful. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Another big thank you to everyone that tuned in today. Make sure to keep riding the flow of your creative journey. And don't forget to submit your work for this year's 6th annual ColorPro Awards. It's absolutely free to enter, and your wonderful photo, video, or illustration could win you a host of fantastic prizes, pulled at up to 30,000 USD to help elevate your creations even further. You can find more details via the links in the description below. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.